Hello and welcome to the Hispanic Patriot Podcast, a weekly podcast broadcast live from a secret, undisclosed location in the heart of the great state of Colorado. My name is Nicholas Rosno, and without further ado, I present to you all our fearless patron, Hugo Chavez Ray. Give it up for the Hispanic Patriots. We're rolling right into it tonight. We got a lot of show for you folks.
Dark MAGA in the room. Hello, everyone. It's been a whirlwind week. This is our first show with the real president now in charge, Donald J. Trump, back in the White House, and man, he's been working 48 hours plus, and we're getting so much done already. There was before we get started, I wanted to share what I saw on one of his brief conferences last night, and that was the announcement of the investment by Masayoshi Son from Japan, SoftBank. And if you remember when we played him last, the president, or Mr. Son, had announced he was going to invite or he was going to invest $100 billion, and at that time Trump kind of urged him to do $200 billion. But guess what they announced last night? They're going to do $500 billion over the next 4 years.
They announced those were rookie numbers, son. We got to pump those numbers up, and they did.
That was awesome news, because what they're doing is they're investing in AI in the U.S. Imagine what they can do with $500 billion, how many jobs they're going to create, and they're going to put America at the forefront of that new technology, because that's exactly where we need to be. We need to be first at everything.
And not with Chinese money. That's the thing that I am the happiest about, that this is being developed with an ally, with Japan, someone who has been trustworthy with us, who respects us, who doesn't influence our elections, stuff like that.
And there's two other gentlemen that are involved in that as well. So it's a trio of experts in the AI field. So stay tuned for that development. But amazing, they went from 100 billion to 500 billion.
Yeah, the tres amigos robados, man.
He more than doubled what Trump suggested.
Well, maybe he saw Trump be turned into a successful crypto billionaire overnight. Maybe that was part of what improved his business acumen, reputation.
Yeah, that was amazing news. But more amazing news, of course, is as everyone knows, the pardons issued by President Trump for the J6ers, and he didn't waste any time, and he didn't pull any punches. He issued pardons for over 1,500 defendants, both incarcerated and out, and some that have already served some time, including our friend Tom Hamner, who is from Colorado Springs. Unfortunately, due to his busy schedule, we are unable. We were going to try to bring an interview with him, but we'll try to get his interview in for next week and get his perspective on what happened. And I've been hearing on the news a couple of other individuals from the local area, one from Lakewood and one from the Parker area, if I'm not mistaken.
Colorado was well represented among the January 6th political prisoners, it should be said.
Yep. So I came across this video that is quite interesting, which is located at the D.C. jail, took place at the D.C. jail, I believe either this morning or yesterday. And so we're going to play a little bit of that. We've got Representative Lauren Boebert, who happened to be at the jail, and it gives us a little bit of perspective of what was taking place, because what was happening was that apparently some of the jails, including one in Atlanta and the D.C. jail, were kind of dragging their feet about releasing these prisoners, what we call hostages. They've been hostages in these despot and really dungeon-like conditions, being held without trial, which is totally unconstitutional, never has happened. And anyway, they were dragging their feet. So the Trump administration promptly sent some federal marshals over there and said, "You will release these people now." And so they started using paperwork as a excuse. But let's listen in a little bit on what was
As
taking
Democrats
place.
love to do.
Yep.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Chip. Come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Give us an update, guys.
Let's go. Nice.
Multiple different times when they're releasing these January 6 hostages, President Trump signed a pardon yesterday, demanding that they be pardoned, all of them, and released. We've already had to deal with paperwork issues with Coloradans. Last night we were able to expedite that and get them free, but now we're waiting on 22 hostages here in this jail, and according to the United States Marshal, he's dealing with them one by one and getting all the paperwork. So, I would love for President Trump, for Attorney General Pam Bondi, step in and help us out here with the U.S. Marshals and make sure that it doesn't become a paperwork issue. These men have already paid too much time, more time than they ever should have. They should have never been locked up. I was on a news interview and someone was asking Trennis, one of our January 6 hostages that's on federal probation until President Trump signed the pardon, and she asked him if he regretted January 6th, and I stepped in and said, you know what I regret? I regret what the media did to lie about the events of that day. I regret that the American people weren't allowed to know how many federal agents were present in the crowd. I regret that the tens of thousands of hours of footage that was recorded at the Capitol was not released immediately to the American public. I regret the livelihoods that were lost, the time that has been spent locked up unjustly, the amount of time in court and on probation and defending defending oneself against something that they shouldn't have been have to defend. I also regret that the American people weren't allowed to see the police officers that were opening gates, opening doors, escorting people into the Capitol.
Right.
This day was not what the left said, but
Preach!
November 5th showed that the American people believe us, they believe you, they believe that this is unjust because they knew that President Trump was going to pardon them, and that's exactly what he did. That's the mandate that he received overwhelmingly from America, and that is why President Trump is back. And if there's another regret, I'm sure it's only on the Democrats who are regretting that they didn't just shut up, because now they're finding out. They messed around, if you will, for 4 years, and now they're finding out. And I'm hoping that these guys are out before I'm able to return, and if they're not, I'm coming back. I want to see them for their release. And I'll be the first member of Congress to offer them a guided tour in the Capitol.
Wow. That's some fire right there.
Very inspiring stuff from our Congresswoman, who the Hispanic Patriot podcast actually has interviewed. You can find our interview with Lauren Boebert in the description link below. But my goodness.
We're going to be having her back. I can guarantee you that.
We will. I also enjoyed the guy who was given the okay little hand symbol. He ended up with a Miller Lite in his hand afterwards. Like that. That was my favorite guy in the background, honestly, besides the hype man next to him.
That was one location. That was at the D.C. jail, which is one of the worst that from what I'm hearing.
Well, as D.C., I never want to see it again.
There was they were treated, like
political
trash.
prisoners. There's prisons in Syria and Russia that wouldn't look unfamiliar. This is ridiculous. We are so happy. We thank God that the January 6 protesters who did nothing wrong are going to be released. It's just, Hugo, what do you think about them dragging their feet like that? They have to do just one last little thing, don't they?
They have to do they have to give the little final jab because they know that they've had it and they've been had, and now they're going to try to drag their feet. But I guarantee you, this isn't going to fly.
No.
President Trump is going to jump in there, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him go down there.
If it gets bad enough, I mean,
you
that's
will
like he's got
release
the
these
power.
people now.
As they should.
And I don't know what paperwork they're waiting on. What paperwork? Just release them. They were illegally held anyway. You can do your paperwork afterwards.
Completely. You know, there was a construction worker that was going into the inauguration, 4 years ago with Joe Biden. And he had made a good point. He said, there's so many military checkpoints and soldiers. He said, maybe if you need an entire army to protect you from the people who elected you, maybe it wasn't the people who elected you. I will remember that until I die, man, because that was the truth. And Trump didn't need 30,000 National Guardsmen to get sworn in. You notice that?
Yep.
Like some people who are on their way gone. We are unbidened by what we had before.
And I got another video here from the father of one of the prisoners that was released. So I want to listen in on what he had to say.
Standing out here, President Trump signed the pardon over 24 hours ago, or coming up on 24 hours ago. Your son is still not out. What reasons have they given you for that, and what do you think is actually going on?
Well, it's pretty easy to figure out.
We are outside the D.C. Central Detention Center, where there are numerous January 6th prisoners still being held inside, despite the fact that President Trump signed a pardon for them over 24 hours ago. The D.C. government is stonewalling President Trump's pardon. Take a listen to this story.
A lot of families have lost everything. Their husbands, the fathers, the breadwinners have been taken from them and put in prison unlawfully for many years for the simplest of infractions.
You said this wasn't the first prison that your son was at. Can you talk to us about what they charged him with and why he was at another prison before coming here?
Sure. What they do is it's called diesel therapy, so you can't settle. So what they'll do is when they first picked my son up on January 16, 2021, they scooped him up and then they started taking him from prison to prison. Spent 202 days down in the bowels of the D.C. prison. The conditions there are so egregious. He was actually sifting water through a sock because there's so much rust in the bottom of that prison that you can't drink the water. And they would lay them on a cot. They had lights. This was like Vietnam, where they had lights on all the time. You had 2 blankets. They call them suicide blankets, and you just laid them on a basically a block, and you didn't even have a mattress. So and then what they do, as soon as you start to get communications with your attorneys and your family, they scoop you up and they take you to another prison. And then
there needs to be some heads rolling on this. This should not be over with the release of these prisoners after this kind of treatment that he's describing.
Not at all.
For 2 weeks, you're usually a week to 2 weeks, you're in solitary, where they're transitioning you into the new prison. And then you're there for, maybe 3 to 5 months. They ship you out again. And there was a time that on 2 Christmases ago, we didn't know where he was for almost 3 weeks. How is that possible? How come you can't, call his family? Nobody knows where he's at. When you can't talk to your attorneys, you can't hardly even talk to your family, and you can't possibly, make a defense. And then when you do get your attorneys, you talk to your attorneys, and then they scoop you up and they move you to the prison. All your notes and stuff, they take. So they know exactly what your defense is. It's like playing cards with your opponent looking over your back and looking at your hand. It's impossible to win. What has happened under the Biden regime was so egregious, so anti-American, unconstitutional. They walked all over our Bill of Rights. Thank God President Trump came in here, because not just for our patriots and our families, but for all of America, because if they didn't like you, they would do anything to shut you up. They tried to shut down my businesses. They had the local the state agencies come after my companies. I got a bunch of companies, I have restaurants. And so they'll stop at nothing to shut you down, and I've lived through it, and so here we are today.
So you're standing out here. President Trump signed the pardon over 24 hours ago, or coming up on 24 hours ago. Your son is still not out. What reasons have they given you for that, and what do you think is actually going on?
What this is nothing more than this nasty, rotten mayor of this city that controls these facilities. They're not federal facilities. They're city-run facilities. So what she's doing, because she's all bent out of shape, because they're out, she is doing everything she possibly can to hold up the process and also harm him. My son was assaulted by a lieutenant and 5 other guards last night. He was assaulted, punched. He was sitting in the middle of the quad waiting to get processed and go out. Came in, they handcuffed him, they wrenched his wrists, put him behind him, they punched him. From what I understand, they threw him physically into his cell, and that's where he was for the rest of the night. And this is a young man who has been pardoned like everybody else. And so this is how they're treating them. So we already have a lawsuit filed, but this just adds to the damages.
And what has the prison told you? Have you been able to talk to anyone from the jail? What excuse are they giving? Have they given any kind of explanation to you guys?
We got the pardon, the actual pardon that President Trump wrote, and then we just got Judge Nichols, who was the judge who was, going to hear my son's trial, and he signed off on it as well. So we have that's all done now, and so maybe she's trying to make some sort of an excuse that because all this paperwork wasn't done, she was not going to let them out. But what's happening is, we don't know when he's going to let out. And there's not just my son, there's a bunch of other J6ers in there. So this nasty mayor just trying to get even or do everything she can to stonewall because, she doesn't like these people. She doesn't like Trump. And she does everything that she possibly can to thwart anything that's helpful to these J6ers and their families.
That is just sick and demented, but that's how these people are, man.
Well, and it bothers me because that's not how Americans are. I mean, I remember stories from my families in Poland who lived under communism. This is how the communists would treat you. You can ask Venezuelans, you can ask Cubans. This is the treatment that you get in authoritarian regimes. Let me correct you.
These people aren't communists. I'm sorry. These people. This mayor is a communist.
Oh, yeah, they are. I mean, you're exactly right. Let's not beat around the bush. These people aren't like communists. They are. This is the treatment you get in communist countries. This is what happens when you oppose the government in Russia, China, in Syria, before everything, in Poland, under the Iron Curtain. I am frustrated and emotional in ancestral ways because you and I know this. Peru and Mexico haven't always been completely democratic countries as well. We came to this country so that we would never have to be treated like this. And now we know that if a Democrat gets into office, this is how they're okay treating people. This is what we got to remember. It's not just Trump. We have to elect a Republican 4 years from now and have a Republican inauguration 4 years from now as well. Otherwise, this will come back.
Absolutely. And this is for those of you watching out there that have not been paying attention, this is exactly what's been going on. I mean, this is not a joke. This is not something that's supposed to be happening in the United States of America. This is something you would expect from a gulag in Siberia somewhere.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous. And I hope President Trump comes down with a huge hammer on these people. And I hope every one of these people sue the pants off of every one of these jails and these officials.
Pants, shirt, shoes, everything. But I want to remind our audience out there something. Biden is not the only one, okay? The head is like not even 10% of what's going on. There are mayors and judges. There are people who are just following orders, and they need to face justice just as much as any head of anything. We've already established you can't say I'm just following orders. That is not a defense.
Yeah, that didn't fly in World War II, and it's not going to fly now.
No, not at all.
Okay. Moving on.
God bless all the J6ers.
Absolutely. We're going to have more on this subject. We're going to follow as much as we can. And like I said, we're going to try to have not only Tom, our friend, on, but also some others, J6ers that we can possibly interview and get firsthand accounting of what they went through from some of the different jails. Because this is just one place. This is the D.C. jail that we just saw. But these people are spread out all over. There was some in Atlanta. There was some in Maryland. There were some in Pennsylvania. I mean,
and sleeping on blocks, eating cat food, having to live like animals, for no reason other than expressing their First Amendment rights.
Exactly. So This is not the end of this, folks. We're gonna
Not at all. And you will be hearing it from the Colorado all of our people here, Colorado Hispanic Republicans, the Hispanic Patriot podcast. We know January 6ers, and soon you guys will too. Look forward to that.
absolutely. All right. Now on to some better news, and that is our first Hispanic Secretary of State, Mr. Marco Rubio, was confirmed unanimously.
Viva!
99-0. And the reason it wasn't 100 is because we still have the vacant seat from J.D. Vance in Ohio that has not been filled yet, which will be a Republican. So technically speaking, whoever that is would have voted for Senator Rubio, who is now Secretary of State Rubio. So congratulations to our friend Marco from the great state of Florida. And let's take a quick peek on what took place on that. We had when I heard 99-0, I just jumped through my seat there.
On this vote, the yeas are 99, the nays are 0. The nomination of the great Senator Marco Rubio from the state of Florida is confirmed.
Woo! Viva!
Under the previous order, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the President will be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
How about that?
I'm proud.
Senator, now Secretary of State Rubio. And let's listen in a little bit at his reception that he got at the State Department. That was another. Let's get there.
Maybe with him in charge, I could finally go back to my old dream of becoming a diplomat.
Okay. Mr. Secretary,
Look at it there.
welcome to the department. Distinguished Mrs. Rubio. Yes. Yeah. Want to give a special greeting to Mrs. Rubio. Yes.
La señora Rubio.
To your family.
I don't know how to his wife before.
Distinguished guests.
I've seen her a couple
Members
times.
of Congress.
You'd
On
want
behalf
her.
of the nearly 80,000 strong officers who are serving in the Department of State, a warm welcome. Mr.
Little do they know, some of those people are going to get fired.
Mr. Secretary,
By such a nice
your
help
career exemplifies a life of public service, advocating for core American interests all over the globe.
The Rubio
In these
children.
challenging times, we need principled, strong leadership. And that is why we are so happy to have you with your experience, your dedication, and your energy to lead us. Thank you.
Cuba Libre!
Your team, who are obviously very happy to see you, have proudly supported so many of your trips abroad, where you've advanced security in the Middle East, helped us to sustain our counterterrorism fight, and inspired so many with your walk across the Simón Bolívar Bridge. Mr. Secretary, the men and women of this department are ready to get to work, advancing the agenda of President Trump and of yourself. And with that, I will welcome you to the Department of State. Colleagues, the 72nd Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Thank you.
We're coming for the Panama Canal!
Thank you.
There's a time clock on his now.
Much. Thank you.
It's a blessing and an honor to be with all of you today. And I want to introduce you to my family. I want you to meet them. We've been able to manage them for the last 20-some years and counting. And so I said this earlier today when the Vice President swore me in. My most important job, I believe the most important job any of us will ever have, is the job we do at home. And I don't mean that both here at home domestically in our politics, but in our lives. And I'm very proud of my wife, my 4 children, and their support. My wife, Jeanette, who her parents immigrated here from Colombia. Anybody here from Colombia? Anybody cover Colombia?
Kids are Cubano and Colombian. Dang.
And then my oldest daughter, Amanda. Say hello, Amanda.
Kind of hide the back.
And then came Daniela. And now Anthony.
Antonio.
And our youngest, Dominic. So these three are in school, meaning, you know, college and even jobs. We're still working. He's doing good. He's a junior in high school, and obviously my family beyond that is here, who made this possible. Jeanette's mom, Maria, is here, and my sisters Barbara and Veronica are here, and a lot of friends that came from Miami who joined us here today, and I'm grateful. And thank you. I also want to recognize my former colleagues from the congressional branch,
all Dolphin
who also
fans,
happen to be appropriators and authorizers, and so I thought it was important.
You know, his wife was a cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins, right?
3 people I've known for a long time, yeah. And by coincidence, Florida is very well represented in the authorization and appropriations in the House. Mario Diaz-Balart, who I've known as a personal friend. We served together in the Florida legislature. In fact, sat next to each other on the floor. Who would have thought, Mario, back in the day? And now here we are, you know. And 2 Cuban Americans. If we had a third, they'd call it a conspiracy, but there's only 2, so we're in shape. Congresswoman Lois Frankel, we also served in the legislature together. Again, I know this. I know it looks suspicious. She just happens to be from Florida as well, and she happened to be on that committee. And then, of course, my colleague, Brian Mast, who thank you for being here as well. I have asked them as a personal favor to be nice to each of you who we send over to testify and appear before their committees. So. And to be nice to us when they write those appropriations bills and pass those laws. But we are great. I'm really grateful you would join us, because our partnership will be critically important. I want to thank President Trump for nominating me. This is an extraordinary honor and a privilege to serve in this role, to be here, frankly, to oversee the greatest, the most effective, the most talented, the most experienced diplomatic corps in the history of the world resides in this building. And it's important to remember that obviously they serve our national interest and our foreign policy. They also serve Americans. And as a member of the Senate, we often would get calls for a brief period of time, panicked calls about passports. As you remember that era, when everyone forgot their passport expired and their cruise was on Saturday and it's Friday, 5 p.m. So why are you guys chuckling? Is that, you know, it's and then, of course, but we also serve Americans that sometimes find themselves overseas and lost their passport, or even worse, something terrible or tragic happened and their families are impacted by it. And so it's important. It's an important task, and one that I know is critical to our mission. Beyond that, this is the face of the United States. In fact, if you think about it, for many people on this planet, their only interaction with America, most will never travel here, their only interaction with America in many cases, whether they be leaders or everyday people, will be the men and women who serve us abroad and do so with tremendous integrity and dedication. They are literally the face of our country, whether it's through the aid we've provided or through the services. I also want to say hello, and is this being live streamed somewhere? Are people watching this in all of our nations? Good. I want to thank them. I know they can't be with us here today, and depending on where they are in the world, It's probably not as cold as it's been, at least for a Floridian. So I also think the brilliance of this organization shows by hosting these events indoors, which it's already showing, and we're grateful for that as well. But I want to tell you that I want to thank you, all those who are serving overseas and abroad, some in places that are strong and stable and others that are more tenuous and dangerous. And I want to do something also special. I want to also thank the locally employed staff, the nationals of those countries who work with us.
That's a wonderful shout out. He's so humble. That's what we need.
Absolutely. I think he was the right pick.
I've been a fan of Marco Rubio since like 2010.
Without their support, it would be impossible for us to conduct our mission. And in many ways, years later, I've literally run into people in the United States that are either conducting business or visiting as tourists or what have you, and they will tell me they were locally employed.
I think so.
They were local employees of our missions abroad, and as a result, their love for our country is never ending. I am new to this department. Today is my first day on the job, literally, but I am not a stranger to it. I've interacted with many of you, both in my travels abroad and in our daily functions. My job now is different, and our job in some ways will be different. In our republic, the voters decide the course of our nation, both domestically and abroad.
Said our republic.
And they have elected Donald J. Trump as our president when it comes to foreign policy on a very clear mission. And that mission is to ensure that our foreign policy is centered on one thing, and that is the advancement of our national interest, which they have clearly defined through his campaign as anything that makes us stronger or safer or more prosperous. And that will be our mission. That will be our job across the world, is to ensure that we have a foreign policy that advances the national interest of the United States. I expect every nation on earth to advance their national interests. And in those instances, and I hope there will be many, in which our national interest and theirs align, we look forward to working with them. This is in many ways, and again it was referenced by President Trump yesterday in his speech, that he designs that his overriding goal for global policy is the promotion of peace, the avoidance of conflict. And no agency will be more critical in that regard than this one. In fact, it's its founding principle and purpose. And that's what we endeavor to do, to promote peace around the world, because that's in our national interest. Without peace, it is hard to be a strong nation, a prosperous nation, and one that is better off. But there will also be challenges. We recognize that there will be those times, unfortunately, as humans interact with one another because of our nature. But there will be conflict. We will seek to prevent them and avoid them, but never at the expense of our national security, never at the expense of our national interest, and never at the expense of our core values as a nation, as a people. We are, at the end of the day, a nation founded on a powerful principle. And that powerful principle is that all men are created equal, because our rights come from God, our Creator, not from our laws, not from our governments. And we hope the entire world can one day live under that, and we will always, always be strong defenders of that principle. Never at the expense of our national interest, never at the expense of pragmatic foreign policy, never at the expense of the reality that oftentimes in foreign policy, our choices are not between a bad option and a good option. Sometimes in foreign relations, our options are two bad ones, and we're just trying to figure out which one of them is least bad. And that's unfortunate, but it is true. And that's a tough job. It's our job. And we'll seek to do it right and well. That is the core mission of this agency, and it will be the core mission while Donald Trump is president. And we will be effective on his behalf. I also want this agency to be, and I don't mean, not that it's irrelevant now, but I want it to be where it belongs. I want the Department of State to be at the center of how America engages the world. Not just how we execute on it, but on how we follow it. Some of the brightest minds in foreign policy reside within this building and within this government. And we need to ensure that we have an environment here that's conducive to creativity, to boldness, to new ideas, to recognizing the dynamic world in which we live, one that is changing faster than it has ever changed before. And we need to be ahead of it. When the time comes for the principals to gather, or even deputies, I want the Department of State to have the best ideas and the best options available for the president. And then I want us to be able to execute them better than any agency in our government. That will also be a task of mine. I have watched from the congressional side from time to time administrations in both parties, in which sometimes the Department of State has been sort of relegated to a secondary role because some other agency can move faster.
He is knocking it out of the park.
Or seems to be bolder or more creative. It's not your fault, but we're going to change that. We want to be at the centerpiece. We want to be at the core of how we formulate foreign policy, because we're going to have the best ideas of any agency, and because we're going to execute it better and faster and more effectively than any other agency in our government. And I know we have the right team to do it. There's no other agency in the world, there's no other agency in our government that I'd rather lead, because of the talent that's collected here in this room and those watching around the world. That will be our mission, and I hope we'll be able to do it together. There will be changes, but the changes are not meant to be destructive. They're not meant to be punitive. They're not out of the changes will be because we need to be a 21st century agency that can move, by a cliche that's used by many, at the speed of relevance. But we need to move faster than we ever have, because the world is changing faster than we ever have. And we have to have a view that some say it's called look around the corner, but we really need to be thinking about where are we going to be in 5, 7, 10, or 15 years. Some of the issues that confront humanity today have no precedent. They have no historic precedent. Some of the challenges we face have no historic precedent. We can compare it to another era, to another time, but they're not the same. Things are moving faster than ever. Think about how much the world has changed in the last 5 years. Imagine how much it will change over the next 25 years. And my sincerest hope and my prayer is that we will, as a nation, be able to leave the future generations with a country and a planet safer and better than the one that was left for us. And you will be a big part of achieving that goal. It is an honor to be able to lead this agency. I hope to do it with distinction and with integrity, working harder than anyone ever has at this role. And that will not be easy because some pretty hard-working people have come before me. But I know that we are up to the task. And I'm glad that I'm in the job, on day one. I was sworn in at about 9:15. I didn't mess up the oath. And we're ready to go to work, and I know you are as well. Thank you. God bless all of you.
This is a day to be proud. Hugo, you were 100% correct. This is the highest office that a Hispanic has ever held in America because, as you might know, and to inform our viewers, the Secretary of State, or in other countries he's called the Foreign Minister, is the highest cabinet position. Traditionally, the person who deals with international diplomacy is the highest person on a council. That has been since the Roman era, the Roman Empire. It's been like this. So this is a hugely proud day for Hispanic Americans. I don't want the significance of this to be lost on anybody.
Yeah, I think President Trump absolutely had the right pick on this one. And
out of the park.
Hispanic America is watching, and they are proud, and they are glad that that we have a gentleman of the class and the dignity of Mr. Of Secretary of State Rubio. Now
we now have to say Mr. Secretary, don't we? Now he's
Mr.
not just
Secretary.
Mr. Secretary. A lot better than Madam Secretary. You know what I mean? Just way better. But this is no. You were right, Hugo. Presidential is how he was acting. Is how he acts now. Because you have to. I started in politics in about 2010, like seriously around the Obama era. Marco Rubio was the rising star at the time. You remember this back in the day, don't you? Just 15 short years ago.
I mean, he's always been well-spoken. There's no question about it. He's articulate. He's well-spoken. He doesn't mince words, and you know exactly where he stands.
Very sage-like, you know.
So I definitely he is a rising star, and I expect to see him somewhere down the line in a higher position.
And there's only one other higher position that you can go, folks. So we'll be watching it all on the Hispanic Patriot podcast.
There's two.
Well, yeah, he could be vice president. That's we gave away the joke for you folks, but you know, I had this suggestion the other day. It'd be kind of funny if everyone wants JD Vance to be the next guy, right? Someone suggested to me how funny it would be if Marco Rubio ran for president with JD Vance as his vice president, because somebody brought up the question to me, maybe you know, has there been a vice president that has been through two different Republican terms with two different Republican presidents? Wouldn't that make history?
That would, but that's not the way the hierarchy works.
It's very true, folks. Just because something is cool and historically a precedent does not mean it's going to happen. But anything can happen in America.
But the nomination process is what sets it apart.
Oh, you're right. You're right, Hugo.
If Marco Rubio were to be a candidate during a primary and he got the votes, then he would rightfully be the nominee. So,
but right now we have to enjoy the 4 years of Trump we have right now. We will think about.
We're getting way ahead of ourselves.
We are getting way ahead. We always, hey, like Marco said, we got to think about 7, 10, 15 years in the future. I think he's starting to think about it, and so are we.
All right, let's segue into a topic that has been at the forefront of the news. As you know, the tradition is for the day after the inauguration to have the national prayer at the cathedral.
National Cathedral, beautiful Gothic.
And of course, all the president, vice president, first lady, second lady, and a lot of dignitaries and their families attend that at the National Cathedral. Well, they had this Episcopalian bishop that was appointed to give an address at this event, and to the surprise of President Trump and Vice President Vance. I almost said Pence. My God.
Now we're getting behind ourselves.
Yeah. So this bishop took it upon herself to basically chastise the president in a very real manner, and the president was none too happy, as you'll see in this video that we're about to show.
You ever have your dog throw up on your shoes the day after your birthday? This is this is about the energy.
Look at President Trump's face.
Look at Melania's face. Look at Eric's face.
Let me make one final plea, Mr. President. Millions have put their trust in you. And as you told the nation yesterday, you have felt the providential hand of a loving God. In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives.
Oh my God. Look at him.
Just like is this real? God, is this really happening?
This is what President Trump had to say. The so-called bishop who spoke at the national prayer service on Tuesday morning was a radical left hard-line Trump hater. She brought her church into the world of politics in a very ungracious way. She was nasty in tone and not compelling or smart. She failed to mention the large number of illegal immigrants that came into our country and killed people. Many were deposited from jails and mental institutions. It is a giant crime wave that is taking place in the USA. Apart from her inappropriate statements, the service was very boring and uninspiring.
And you were boring too.
She is not very good at her job. She and her church owe the public an apology. And I second that. Amen.
I too.
Oh my God.
Amen and a woman, as the Democrats would say. What is this, Hugo? What is this utter nonsense? You know, I mean,
it's just like, you know, they can't help themselves. It's, you know, they think that they have a platform when they don't. I guarantee you this person will not be invited back to any prayer breakfast or National Cathedral events.
Nor should she. I mean, would you want her back, Hugo? I mean,
absolutely not.
But something I want to say, especially to it makes me a little. I shouldn't say it like this, but it makes me happy to be Catholic. I'll never have to worry about walking into a church and seeing a female priest. But I do want to give a big shout out to all of our Protestant friends out there, because a lot of people, Catholic and Protestant, have been criticizing this. Some people have brought up the debate of whether women should be priests in the first place. So one thing I think that this bishop did very bad for her church, she has opened a debate about whether churches that have women priests are actually relevantly Christian. She has put a huge target on her own faith and her own church. That was abominable. I mean, my doctrine, I believe that a woman cannot be a priest, a real priest, but I respect those of other faiths. you represent more than just yourself. This woman made a mockery of her Episcopal faith, and I shout out to all of our Episcopal viewers out there. We are sorry that this woman was allowed to ruin your name so badly, but we got to take accountability.
Let's be honest about the Episcopalians. They have totally done this to themselves.
This is true.
I tweeted on X that if this woman is a bishop, then I'm the Pope.
Well, Papa Hugo has spoken, everybody. And,
Pope Hugo the First.
There's so much to unpack here. We could probably do a whole half-hour segment of the show just on this, but we won't. We'll keep it in focus.
Oh no!
Damn, Marla!
That's not
that's. I can't tell the difference between Hillary and Kamala. Hugo, I always can't tell the difference. It just looks like one was put through a coffee filter. I don't know what else to tell you, man. But thank God that we have Bishop Budde at least to tell us the word of Christ.
Oh my goodness.
Where was the word of Christ in there? I mean, seriously, when Jesus said, "Suffer the little children to come unto me," I don't think he was talking about ripping off their genitals. I don't think that was what he was referring to. Yeah. I hated when she said that. There are gay and lesbian trans children. No, they're not. Because children aren't through puberty. Those children don't have a sexual thought in their head, and you imagining that they do is frankly effed up. I am so sick of people talking about, any kind of sexuality in regards to children. It's leave the kids alone, people. Well, shout out to Gays Against Groomers and a lot of our friends up in Denver fighting the good fight against all of this, let's be honest, pedophilic, satanic nonsense.
Exactly. And I was watching a YouTube video last night that I'm going to bring onto the show, and it's about this young man who has done his research on so-called non-denominational churches. And it's a very interesting topic, and that's one that we're going to be bringing up to you in upcoming shows, because I think it's a topic that needs to be discussed. And I think this particular young man does a really good job on it. So we'll stay tuned for that. We're going to be bringing that to you.
Yes, indeed. As you guys saw in the videos that we put out a little bit earlier, the Hispanic Patriot podcast, we are not going to shut down or slow down just because the election is over. We are going to bring you guys political, religious, spiritual, cultural news from all around the United States and our Hispanic community. So stay tuned for the Hispanic Patriot podcast's future. It's bright.
En todo el mundo también.
Todo el mundo también. Arriba.
That's the way of the world.
I don't know if you saw that clip, actually, but probably might post that in a short or something like that. But Marco Rubio made a funny joke when he was speaking in Spanish in front of JD Vance to his family. And as soon as he's done speaking in Spanish, he turns to JD. He says, "What I said is that I just switched a bunch of money by switching to Geico. I saved a bunch of money by switching to Geico." That guy's got humor, man. You know what I mean? A State Department with humor, man. We're going to rule the world, man. We're going to rule the world again.
All right. Now, we've got a topic that we want to switch over to. We're going to touch on this briefly because right now I'm going to classify this as a rumor. So don't go around jumping off bridges and talking about this, because it's not something that has been documented or confirmed. But
we just want to be the first one to say it if it is true.
But there is a huge rumor that
huge
rumor that somebody we all know and not everybody likes.
That's an understatement.
Is there they are.
Running for understatement of the year, like a first month of it.
The darling couple. So the Meghan McCain has weighed in on the rumor that Barack and Michelle Obama are getting divorced.
How's that?
Claiming on Wednesday that the president, or the former president, and first lady live separate lives.
I can believe that.
I've been hearing this rumor that the Obamas are getting a divorce. This is a quote from Meghan. Getting a divorce by reputable people. And I'm not talking about TMZ. I'm not talking about Perez Hilton, although I love him. He's my friend. McCain said on political reporter Tara Palmieri's podcast, I'm talking about like very serious journalists telling me that they're hearing the Obama divorce rumors are true. We've heard that for a long time, said Palmieri, who covers Washington for Puck. Like I just heard that they live separate lives. Palmieri added that her sources are very political, and she wonders if the rumors are motivated by the lack of goodwill towards Obama because he essentially orchestrated the pushing out of Joe Biden.
What a nice open secret.
I am not at home with them, but it's not really surprising at this phase of their life, Palmieri continued. And she clearly has very little interest. She's always hated politics. She did not really like being first lady.
That explains why there were all these rumors about her becoming president, I guess.
Yep. And the Obamas sparked divorce rumors when Michelle declined to appear at Donald Trump's inauguration without offering an excuse after previously skipping out on Jimmy Carter's funeral due to scheduling conflicts. Yeah, I know what the scheduling conflict was. She didn't want to sit next to President Trump.
The conflict is that Trump was also on the schedule.
Yep, and the way that just so people understand, the way that they have the seating at these state funerals like that, where you have living presidents, they seat them in the order in which they served. So what that meant was President Trump was going to sit next to the Obamas. And if Michelle had been there, she would have been next to Trump, because otherwise it would have been awkward to have Obama sitting next to Trump and she sitting to his right.
That's what ended up happening anyways, though. And Obama and Trump it up.
Well, that was because she wasn't there. But
so that was a mistake by her part.
The protocol called for the lady to be first and then the man. So
yes.
Michelle would have been seated right next to Trump, whom she hates with a passion. That's no secret. So Palmieri pointed out that Obama posted a photo of his wife for her birthday on January 17th, though the tribute didn't convince McCain. I would kill Ben if he put a picture of me looking like no makeup with that lighting on social media, she said, referring to her husband, Ben Dominic. I would kill him. Oh, did she just threaten her husband? So for me, it didn't help the rumors. And why are you putting this
bad picture of your wife up?
Bleeping picture of your wife up?
What a mentally stable, very respectable person McCain is.
Oh, yeah, she's got a mouth. Happy birthday to the love of my life at Michelle Obama. You fill every room with warmth, wisdom, humor, and grace. Yes, Big Mike, you do. And you look good doing it. I'm so lucky to be able to take on life's adventures with you. Love you, Obama captioned the post, which showed the couple holding hands across a table. A very wide table, I might add.
Yeah, really.
So this is the rumor, okay? It's hitting the tabloids, and of course, people are gonna surmise what they surmise from it. For now, we'll leave it to a rumor. But as one of the podcasters I was watching said, rumors have a way of becoming facts, and I think. This is one of those that may qualify for that. So we'll see how this develops.
There's also a rumor that Kamala and Doug Emhoff are having problems afterwards.
You mentioned that, didn't I?
Yes, I did. I actually heard it from Jeremy from The Quartering, and shout out to him, a great conservative podcaster and former Magic the Gathering player. And basically, he said that there was a rumor because there was a fear that Doug Emhoff's whole bit with him getting his nanny pregnant or beating women or whatever didn't exactly do the best for Kamala's image, especially with her own voter base. So there was kind of a question about that, of whether she was mad at Doug, trying to find people to blame and everything that.
He did kiss Dr. Jill.
He did do that too. That was really creepy.
State of the Union.
That was creepy as hell. I'm gonna be honest. Like
Yeah.
that was the. So we all have some questions and everything like that. But let's be honest, folks. Democrats don't believe in marriage anyways. So who cares if the Obamas get divorced?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like their money's gonna go anywhere. Their lives aren't gonna change. Their kids aren't gonna care. You know, the problems of divorced children aren't gonna affect them. You know, the one daughter of Obama, you know, camping it up at Lollapalooza. You know what I'm talking about, everybody.
Malia.
Yeah, you all remember that.
Yeah.
No, if they get divorced, who will honestly care? Who will honestly care? These Democrats don't believe in marriage anyways, so you know, divorce is right around the corner for them.
All the Obama lovers will care.
What Obama lovers are left? Clearly not enough to vote for Kamala for president.
Yeah, really.
But guys, yeah, you heard it here on the Hispanic Patriot podcast first, if it was true.
If it was true, exactly.
If it's not true, you also heard it here first. So, you know, keep watching.
We're not TMZ, so we're not going to belabor the issue. But
yeah, we'll tell you if something's BS.
Suffice to know that it's out there, and if Meghan McCain is out there pushing it, then it must be true. That was a joke, folks.
If you couldn't tell.
So you had something else you wanted to share?
Yes, we did. We did, in fact, because we know that for Hispanic issues here on the Hispanic Patriot podcast, it's not just that we have the first Hispanic Secretary of State. We also have instant action on the border. Let's go to CBS.
A national emergency at the southern border, and now thousands of U.S. troops could be on their way. CBS's Omar Villafranca is in the border city of El Paso, Texas, with the breaking developments in the new border crackdown. Good evening, Omar.
Good evening, Nora. The operation to move 1,500 active duty troops to the U.S.-Mexico border is underway. 1,000 from the Army, 500 from the Marines, moving to El Paso and to San Diego. That's on top of the 2,500 troops that are already stationed along the border. That number could balloon to as many as 10,000. Now, the troops won't act as law enforcement, but military planes, including C-17s and C-130s, will be used to deport migrants out of the country, starting with 5,000 from El Paso and San Diego. We also learned today that border agents have new powers. They will be allowed to throw people out who cross illegally instead of allowing them to come in and go through the asylum process.
About time.
And Omar, what about those raids that are part of this larger crackdown?
CBS News, Nora, has obtained an internal administration document saying that U.S. military bases may be used to house migrants before they are deported. And the Department of Homeland Security said that ICE agents will also be allowed to go into schools and churches to carry out operations. That's at the discretion of the ICE agents. That's a reversal of Biden administration policy that made those places off limits. And on top of all that, the DOJ sent a memo out to its employees who are working on immigration issues saying that if they don't work with law enforcement or have any objections, they could be prosecuted. Nora?
A lot of important details, Omar Villafranca.
Sir.
Thank you very much.
That is
very, very nice.
That is great news, and I can hear the wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Well, they can wail and gnash. I mean, Hugo, what do you think about this? The fact that when Joe Biden was elected, he had to bring 30,000 U.S. National Guards, an entire Army Corps, to D.C. to get sworn in. But the first thing that the Donald Trump presidency does with the troops is send them to protect us at the border. Isn't that the biggest contrast you could have ever asked for, Hugo?
Well, that's what the president's supposed to do, is protect the country. And the border there is an invasion at the border. I don't care what they want to call it.
There is. And us Hispanics know better than most that it's happening.
And more importantly, it's been an orchestrated invasion by our own so-called president.
Our former government, if you could say now.
The worst president and vice president in the history of the United States is gone.
This is why I really thank God. Thank God, and thank Jimmy Carter for leaving it unambiguous who the worst living president is now. You know, Jimmy, you are no longer the worst president considered. We appreciate your peanut farming. Now the what do we want to call Joe? The tax farmer, the BS farmer, you know, whatever have you. But everybody, we are so happy that this guy is gone because, again, we want those troops at the border, not protecting some guy who may or may not have frauded his election.
And there's the music telling us that we are out of time.
We're on time today? Oh my goodness. You guys know it's a new day in America.
First show of the Trump 2 presidency. I have been walking on cloud 9 since Monday. I don't know about you, but this has been a tremendous week, and it's going to continue to be good news after good news. God bless the J6ers who are being released, and we'll have more on that, and we'll be keeping up with the nominations and confirmations that are coming in. We're expecting Pete Hegseth to be confirmed next week, along with some other, and Kristi Noem at National Security. So there's a lot more to come, folks.
We have so much for you guys coming out. We cannot wait to share it all with you. Thank you all for following us. The best is yet to come.
God bless America. We're
God
back.
bless America. We are back.
America is back.
And Hispanic Patriot Podcast is back now and forever, guys. We appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining us every week on Wednesday, 6 p.m. Make sure to drop us a like, subscribe, and comment. And if you're so inclined, go to our website and donate. It helps us make better